Jace Terran drifted to the haze of the orbital scrapyard with the loose-limbed ease of someone who'd spent more time in zero-G than on solid ground. Rust-red light from the dying star filtered through the wreckage, casting silhouettes of shattered hulls and torn solar arrays. Most visitors kept to the lit lanes, wary of jagged metal and latent charges. But Jace had a talent for finding value where others saw junk. He threaded a path past a scorched freighter spine and an old mining pod, visor reflecting the glow of his wrist console. Its readout listed today's auctions: drone parts, cracked fusion bottles, a collection of antique oxygen masks. Then one entry made him pause. Unidentified craft, derelict status, half-credit starting bid. The listing showed only a blurred outline, like someone had tried to photograph a shadow. He tapped the details. The craft had been found drifting near the fringe, unresponsive but structurally sound. No registry, no transponder, no record of ownership. The note at the end amused him. Price reduced for prompt removal. Half a credit wasn't much. On a good day, he charged triple that for a single refitted thruster. Curiosity prickled the back of his neck. He'd learned long ago that luck favored those who poked at mysteries before caution caught up. He pinged the broker, sealed the bid, and watched the confirmation flicker green. The deal felt absurdly easy, as though someone were eager to see the craft gone. Jace pocketed his tablet and steered his scooter toward Dock 12. The ship waited behind a curtain of static-ridden containment fields. Its silhouette was sharper here, a wedge-shaped body with swept wings folding close to hull, skin scarred by micrometeor impacts. Faint traceries of symbols curved along its flank, unreadable yet oddly symmetrical. He hovered closer, scanning for hatches or seams. Nothing matched any design he'd serviced. Even the hull plating was strange, darker than the vacuum around it, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. He latched the scooter to a nearby girder and drifted across, boots clamping onto hull with magnetic clicks. The metal felt alive beneath the gloves of his suit, cool yet thrumming, like a distant engine idling. He rapped it once. The vibration traveled farther than it should, echoing down unseen corridors. A whisper of anticipation curled in his chest. The access port he eventually found was half hidden behind a warp panel. A single conduit protruded, frayed but intact. He patched in a portable feed, cycling through languages and power signals until, on a whim, he tried an obsolete salvage handshake. A pulse of light raced beneath the surface, outlining a doorway. The panel slid aside without a sound. Inside, the airlock smelled faintly metallic, though his suit filters dulled the scent. Walls curved in elegant arcs, not welded but grown, as if shaped by some patient artisan. He stepped through and felt gravity settle, light as moontide. Emergency strips blinked awake, casting blue shimmer across the deck. The corridor beyond was narrow yet purposeful. Lines of conduit pulsed faintly under translucent plating, guiding him toward a central chamber. Tools on his belt clinked with each cautious step. The chamber opened into a hexagonal space with a sunken console at its heart. A crystal sphere hovered above it, slowly rotating. Faint symbols spiraled inside, refracting light like captured rainbows. Jace crouched, tracing a finger near the interface without touching. He'd seen plenty of advanced ships, corporate couriers, military scouts, but none possessed this balance of austerity and beauty. He removed his helmet, ignoring the rule about unknown atmospheres, and inhaled carefully. The air was crisp, faintly sweet. He unpacked the scanner, sweeping the walls. Energy patterns returned erratic, but promising results. Whoever built this hadn't wanted amateurs digging through, yet they left the heart of the craft temptingly intact. Time blurred as he set up a makeshift camp in the chamber. He cataloged panels, trace cables, and nudged power couplers into place. The ship felt dormant, not dead. Each repair brought subtle feedback. A hum after he bridged a circuit, a soft warmth through the deck when he cleaned residue from an intake grill. While he worked, his mind wandered. He'd grown up patching haulers on the belt, scraping meals from work that bored better men into quitting. A derelict like this, alien, silent, filled with puzzles, felt like a personal dare. Hours passed before a tremor quivered through the deck. He froze, wrenched halfway to a bolt. The crystal sphere brightened, shedding motes of silver dust. Lines of script flowed across the console, self-assembling into patterns he couldn't read. Then a soft tone resonated, layered with harmonics that resonated in his bones. He swallowed, suddenly aware of how alone he was. "Hello." His voice sounded small against the humming chamber. A cascade of light swept around him, followed by a distorted murmur, like language smothered by static. The ship wasn't just reviving, it was trying to communicate. His wrist console beeped wildly, detecting an encrypted data burst. He toggled decryption protocols, letting algorithms chew at the puzzle. Fragments surfaced, coordinates, warnings, a name corrupted by noise. He caught two clear words, swarm and protocol. That was enough to spike his pulse. Tales of the swarm drifted through SpaceAbars, rumors of biomechanical predators, half myth, half cautionary tale. He'd never believed them. The ship pulsed again, brighter, and for an instant the air shimmered with an outline. A figure shaped from starlight, faceless yet unmistakably present. It turned toward him, then vanished as quickly as it had appeared. He exhaled, forcing calm. The rational part of him whispered that he should leave, report this to authorities, maybe sell a fine for a clean profit. Yet something deeper pushed against that notion. The craft had chosen to stir. When he touched it, whatever secret it held, it wanted him to see. He powered down the scanner, stretched aching shoulders, and addressed the quiet ship. "All right, if you're in talk, let's get you fixed first." He returned to work, prying open conduits, threading replacement wires from his kit. Occasionally he felt a vibration, like the ship was guiding him, opening junctions before he reached them. It was subtle, never coercive, as though it sought collaboration rather than control. At one point, a panel displayed a flicker of images, starfields dotted with crimson markers, schematics of strange weapons, tactical overlays fading before he could focus. He caught a glimpse of a vast structure breaking apart under energy fire. The final frame lingered, an expanding wave of darkness, edges gnawing at the stars. Then the screen blanked, leaving only his reflection. Unease crawled under his skin, but he pressed on. Salvage wasn't for the timid. Jace woke to the soft glow of the crystal sphere and the muted hum of dormant engines. Sleep had come in snatches while diagnostic routines rippled across the console. When he sat up, the sphere brightened and a voice, low, even, threaded with static, emerged from hidden speakers. It pronounced his name correctly, as though it had been rehearsing. He replied cautiously, unsure if the ship's awakening intelligence could understand nuance. The voice introduced itself as Halo, a phonetic approximation it had chosen from a database of human languages. Its cadence was precise but faintly curious, like a scholar testing speech after centuries of silence. It informed him that the craft was a Guardian Interceptor, final of his line, built to oppose a consuming enemy cataloged only as the Swarm. It had slumbered after its fleet fell, waiting for a compatible operator. Jace's touch had met dormant biometric locks, something about human nerve patterns that fit its requirements better than expected. While the explanation settled, Halo projected a floating schematic, hull cross-sections, reactor conduits, thruster geometry. A ribbon of symbols unfurled, translated into brisk instructions. Training mode, the AI announced, was mandatory if the vessel was to be trusted in flight. Jace fastened his suit, suppressing the unease of becoming a pupil to a machine older than his species' presence in this sector. He followed guidance through narrow corridors to a cockpit tucked behind layered shielding. Seats molded to his frame as he lowered himself, and control yokes extended like cautious limbs. When Halo activated the simulator, the walls dissolved into a dome of stars. Targets flickered, maneuvers cued themselves on a side display. Jace flexed fingers, grasped the yokes, and began. The first hours were awkward. He overcorrected thruster bursts, lagged behind sensor prompts, collided with projected debris. Halo adjusted feedback with each failure, delivering commentary in an even voice that neither scolded nor praised. Persistence carried him through. Muscle memory formed around alien geometry, wrists learning to roll with the vessel's organic rhythm. Gradually, awkwardness gave way to fluency. When the AI judged his reactions acceptable, it released lockouts on real systems. The simulator dome dissolved, revealing the dim cockpit and a subtle vibration running through the hull. Halo instructed him to guide the ship out of the bay. He sealed his helmet, steadied breath, and coaxed thrusters to life. For a moment the craft clung to the docking clamps. Then it drifted free, moving with predatory grace. Jace threaded between derelict hulks until open voids stretched before him. He tested yaw and roll, marveling at responsiveness sharper than anything in civilian registers. Halo plotted a course through a thin asteroid cluster beyond the station. They entered at cautious speed, weaving among spinning rock. Each pass tightened until they were slicing between fragments only meters apart. A flicker on the threat display broke concentration. A trio of ships approached from the outer ring, slender corvettes running dark until they drew close enough to reveal scavenger markings. Halo's tone lost its scholarly calm. It identified the craft as mercenaries contracted by a salvage cartel. They'd intercepted auction records and wanted the prize. The corvettes locked emitters, and warning brackets ringed Jace's canopy. Halo prepared automated countermeasures, but Jace disabled them, opting for manual control. He spun the vessel behind a tumbling boulder, throttled hard, and skimmed along its surface, forcing pursuers to break formation. Plasma bolts scorched stone where he'd been a second earlier. He darted deeper into the field, turning debris into cover. One attacker clipped a shard and spiraled away, venting atmosphere. The others tightened pursuit. Halo recommended withdrawal, but Jace's instincts argued for boldness. He surged through a narrow gap, twisted the ship on its axis, and fired an auxiliary pulse he'd jury-rigged earlier while restoring circuits. The blast ricocheted across fragments, kicking up a storm of shards that shredded a second corvette's shields. The last mercenary cut losses and veered for clear space. Jay steadied the craft and exhaled, knuckles white around the yokes. Halo registered approval in measured syllables, noting that unpredictability gave humans an advantage algorithms struggled to model. Once safe, the AI released compressed files it had withheld until it could confirm his competence. Holographic pages unfolded across the cockpit, depicting a war fought far from recorded charts. The swarm, it explained, was a hybrid intelligence grown from self-replicating biotech. It consumed everything organic, recycled metals, and adapted to weapons within hours. The Guardian fleet had been engineered to learn faster, to think beyond rigid code. Yet attrition eroded numbers until Halo alone remained, ordered to preserve tactical memory until a new wielder emerged. The information pressed against Jace's thoughts with sobering weight. He understood now that this ship was not salvage, but a burden, a legacy requiring decision. Halo offered an exit. It could place him back at the yard and continue alone, protecting him from danger. Jace studied stars through the canopy, then shook his head. He'd chosen the vessel when it looked like junk. He wouldn't abandon it now that the truth carried risk. Acknowledgement rippled through the hull, subtle as a satisfied breath. Halo recalibrated internal climate to human comfort and transferred partial command privileges. From then, conversation softened. The AI asked questions about belt stations, about why Jace repaired ships rather than fly cargo or sign on with corporate patrols. He answered between system checks, describing the calm and understanding of machine's language, the honesty of metal that didn't pretend to be anything else. While they spoke, he noticed the vessel's movements aligning with his gestures even when autopilot held authority, as though it anticipated his intention. Trust, Halo said, was not a parameter easily quantified, but useful in cooperative operations. Toward the end of their session, a recovered fragment from battle logs triggered priority alert. Coordinates scrolled across a console alongside a pulse waveform coded in emergency colors. Halo translated. Swarm activity detected near a cluster of inhabited systems. Dormant cells were stirring, spreading outposts across forgotten hyperspace corridors. If unopposed, they would multiply until resistance became impossible. The AI hesitated, confessing that its directive allowed observation only unless an operator confirmed readiness for engagement. Jace listened, gaze locked on the numbers glowing against his visor. He imagined miners, traders, children on orbital colonies unaware of approaching ruin. Responsibilities settle heavier than any tool belt. He asked for optimal trajectory to nearest council world. Halo displayed a slender line through star maps, annotated with warnings about contested lanes and sensor nets. The distance looked manageable with current fuel if they minimized detours. Halo prepared long-range engines while Jay secured loose gear and checked seals. As they plotted course, the AI projected a faint outline of the craft's original insignia onto the canopy, a stylized arc sheltering a cluster of dots, emblem protectors who never returned. Jace regarded it quietly, then set jaw and engaged pre-burn sequence. Whatever threat lay beyond, neither of them intended to. Stars bent into thin threads as the interceptor slipped out its final jump. Ahead stretched the Council system, a cluster of stations and gleaming spires circling a blue-white sun. Trade convoys glided between anchor points, their hulls flashing traffic codes. Beyond them, a ring of cruisers scanned arrivals, ready to repel smugglers or worse. Halo throttled engines and broadcast an approach signal in a precise dialect compiled from diplomatic archives. Jay scanned the feed of incoming warnings. Authority ships were tagging their craft as unregistered military hardware. Halo kept its tone steady, transmitting evidence of peaceful intent. After 10 seconds, permission arrived. Restricted corridor, mandatory escort. 2 sleek patrol vessels slid into position and guided them toward a station shaped like an unfolding flower. Docking clamps gripped the hull. Jay secured his helmet and stepped into the airlock, where sterile light bled through a decontamination field. The chamber beyond smelled of ionized air and bureaucratic suspicion. Representatives of several species stood waiting. Tall avians with eyes like polished stone. Fur-backed diplomats balancing data slates. A single human in uniform acting as translator. He spoke clearly, delivering the facts without embellishment. A dormant guardian had reactivated. The swarm was stirring, and border colonies would fall first if no one moved. Murmurs rippled through the hall. One delegate demanded proof of his identity. Another questioned whether the threat was a salvage dealer's ploy. Halo projected fragments of battle logs, images of devoured moons, fleets collapsing into silence. But skepticism lingered. Councils were built to deliberate, not leap. The session adjourned with promises of further assessment. Jace followed a steward to temporary quarters, irritation tightening every step. Halo remained on the comm channel, its voice clipped. It warned that subspace noise suggested heavy movement near the system's fringe. Waiting meant gambling entire populations. Jace paced, weighing dwindling options, until proximity alarms shrieked through the station. Sensors across the network confirmed an unscheduled mass translation. Space beyond the outer moon tore open, disgorging vessels like steel insects. The swarm had arrived ahead of predictions, disgorging hunter craft in disciplined spirals. Civilian liners scattered, and defense ships scrambled to intercept. Jace sprinted back toward the bay. Halo had already overridden docking interlocks. The interceptor's canopy yawned as he vaulted inside. Power surged through conduits, eager for action. Halo plotted intercept vectors, while Jace sealed straps and rolled the craft from the berth. Weapons capacitors pulsed amber along the console. Enemy scouts closed fast, organic hulls bristling with adaptive plating. Station gunners tried to form a line, but the creatures tore through with contemptuous precision. Halo launched countermeasures, scattering sensor ghosts to confuse targeting arrays. Jace wove between hostile salvos, feeling the ship match every impulse like an extension of nerve and muscle. The Council's defense net fragmented. Reports from patrol wings bled across the channel. One squadron overwhelmed, another trapped against an asteroid belt. Jace requested immediate access to regional schematics. Halo flooded his display with maintenance grids, cargo tunnels, and mining installations mapped decades earlier but left dormant. Together they traced a path to neglected service routes threading the inner ring of rocks, an area the swarm ignored, presuming it lifeless. If they could lure the flagship across that belt and trigger stored or charges, debris might cripple its escort screen. Halo computed yield tolerances. Jace overlaid timing estimates from his experience with industrial detonators. It was rough but workable. They dived toward the asteroid field, broadcasting a short-range signal tuned to frequencies the swarm used when locking onto prey. Hostiles pivoted, trailing in tight pursuit. Hull plating vibrated as plasma schemes grazed the shields. Jace threaded craters, guiding them deeper until navigation alarms howled about unsafe clearance. He ignored them, relying on Halo's steady corrections. Far behind, the flagship altered course, a mountain of living alloy, core throbbing with corrosive light. Escort craft fan ahead, determined to box their quarry. Halo Prime remote charges hidden in or caches. Jace counted heartbeats as proximity meters plunged. He gave the order. Explosions tore through the belt, hurling boulders into converging formations. Shock waves rolled across scanners, shredding interceptors and battering the flagship's lateral armor. The behemoth reeled but steadied, its adaptive skin already knitting rents. Halo predicted limited window before regeneration sealed weakness entirely. They would need the primary weapon buried inside the interceptor's heart, a device meant for last stands. Activating it demanded manual calibration in the reactor chamber, a zone steeped in radiation when the cannon armed. Halo hesitated, proposing automated sequences, but Jace cut in. Automated systems failed against adaptive foes because they lacked instinct. Someone had to read fluctuations in real time and adjust. He unstrapped and headed aft while Halo maneuvered through debris, keeping predators at distance. The chamber glowed with lethal blue when he entered. Coolant fog hissed around conduits. Control rods pulsed with contained fury. He clipped tether lines and began aligning resonance plates according to Halo's feed. Each adjustment rattled the deck as energy built toward critical. Radiation levels climbed, gnawing at suit alarms. He pressed on, forcing fingers to remain precise. Halo's voice followed, steady but edged. It updated shield status, enemy bearing, and countdown to overload. Outside, the swarm flagship charged a beam that could slice the station in halves. Time dwindled to heartbeats. Jace locked final couplings, slammed a release lever, and shouted for Halo to fire. A surge roared through the hull, spilling white light across corridors. The weapon discharged, a spear of compressed particles lancing from the interceptor's prow. It struck the flagship amidships, drilling through armor, punching into the reactor mass. For an instant the monster held, as if denying defeat. Then its core imploded, dragging surrounding escorts into a cascading collapse.